Amy, let me start with you. Can you take me through the view on the ground? Governor Gavin Newsom has been outspoken about the sort of fruitlessness of debating climate change at this point, but it does continue to damage his state. So just take me inside the ground truth.
Right. Well, there's a lot of factors that influence what makes wildfires worse. And I'm tuning in here from Seattle, Washington, where we've been cloaked in wildfire smoke for the last few days. And so I really have a first-person perspective on this. And there's several reasons why wildfires are getting worse. The president is actually correct that forest management is one of the factors, but so is climate change, which is drying out the forest, which is making hotter temperatures, which is creating more drought, all of which feed into this setup that for when fires are started, whether it's by a bolt of lightning or humans, that fire is like a tinderbox and it gets going and it ravages more places than it would have otherwise. And so the president is focusing on just one factor when it's actually a lot of factors, including most of all climate change.
Jeremy Bash, I just want to ask you to broaden the lens for me. You go back to the hurricanes heading toward this country, and Donald Trump took a Sharpie and altered the path of a hurricane. I think it was weeks later, maybe months, that we learned that the scientists inside NOAA had written to their superiors about just desperately trying to keep politics out of science. There's example after example in the fight against COVID. We've got a whistleblower who left or was forced out because he refused to go on the hydroxychloroquine scam with Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and his friends at Fox News. There's example after example of Donald Trump pushing medical quackery. I mean, it is a very, very difficult moment to be on the side of science.
Well, Donald Trump is waging a war, Nicole, against science, against data, and against experts. And his MO, as Bob Woodward pointed out, is to downplay any threats. So you see that playing out now with respect to the wildfires consuming an area, I think, the size of Connecticut in the western part of the United States. You saw Trump downplaying the threat from COVID-19. And of course, he took way too long to even speak to it, to acknowledge it. And even to this day, he continues to downplay it and have mass assemblies of people that can become super spreader events. And of course, with respect to the upcoming election, he consistently downplays the threat of foreign state actors, including the Russian Federation, who are looking to interfere in the election on his behalf. So his MO is to downplay anything that threatens the American people, even though his first job in the Constitution, Nicole, is to protect Americans from certain threats.
Yamiche, people in your line of work know that the president is very late to this rolling crisis. California, Oregon, and Washington have been on fire for many, many days. This is the first event he's had on it. What does your reporting suggest about his personal degree of concern?
Well, it's hard to say what, of course, is in President Trump's heart. What I can say is that he has been someone who has wanted to at least show that he is concerned about these fires. But he also is someone whose political career has really been founded on the idea that he knows best, even when scientists, even when health officials say otherwise. So it goes to show you that when he was running, he talked about climate change being a hoax by the Chinese. And now you see him kind of as president rolling back environmental regulation after environmental regulation. He essentially says that he's on the side of business, not science. And you hear him today saying essentially the same thing. So I think there are a lot of critics of the president who would say this is really par for the course. But of course, as we look at the political ramifications, the president really hasn't had to pay large consequences in his fight against science. So it goes to show that, yes, he's in Oregon, California, out west talking about these fires, but he has not been someone who's been made his presidency being about being empathetic for people. Instead, he's been someone who's been hard charging and saying, I have the answer. Everyone else is essentially wrong.
Amy, let me show you Governor Gavin Newsom on Friday.
I'm a little bit exhausted that we have to continue to bait this issue. This is a climate damn emergency. This is real. And it's happening. This is the perfect storm.
Amy, he appeared in a forest at the Democratic National Convention. His state has been hard hit by the two crises really facing that region, coronavirus and the forest fires. What is sort of the view on the ground? Do people feel like the first issue that you talked about, land management, has been not up to par? Do people feel like climate change has been ignored, or do people feel the way the whole country deals with these crises? It depends on their political camp.
I think it certainly depends a lot on your political perspective. Unfortunately, climate change is the most polarizing issue, according to data from Pew and Gallup. So you really look at this issue through the lens of your political party. I think right now these wildfires are hitting blue states, and that is, of course, not going unnoticed by the way the president is handling his interactions with these states. I think there are some people here in Washington state, for example, that do acknowledge climate change, but also want there to be better forest management. And I think the problem with a problem like climate change is that it takes decades to occur and then to also reverse. So even if we stopped emitting greenhouse gases tomorrow, we will still have bad wildfires for decades to come, which is why smart people, including people like Governor Inslee and other people who are on the ground, Governor Newsom of California, they should take a two-pronged approach, right? Address climate change, but also deal with things that they can do now, which is better management of the forests, more measured burning in colder seasons where the tinderbox isn't as present. So it's really not either or. But when you get into the political arena, unfortunately, it really boils down to whether or not you believe in climate change. And belief isn't even the word we should be using. The word is acknowledge, because climate change is a science. So President Trump doesn't acknowledge the science of climate change. There's no belief to be had here.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.